Hello everyone, Olivia Reiner here with Ryan Wood to break down Packers-Vikings victory. Packers won over the Vikings. I know both of us, yes, they're 2-0. I know both of us had the Packers winning, so
Yeah.
Congrats to us. Pete earlier did not have the Packers winning,
No.
so sucks to be Pete, but that's
No.
okay. It was a competition. We didn't let him know, but it was a competition.
Pete knows. Pete knows.
Pete knows, yeah. So Packers win 21-16. Had to think for a second. Pretty big win at home. Definitely came out out the gate, excuse me. Came right out and put a pretty impressive number on the Vikings defense. Scored 3 touchdowns on 3 consecutive drives. And then the offense kind of fell off after that, and they left the defense have to pick up quite a bit of slack. What did you see from the Packers offense that maybe was a little bit different from last week?
When they were on script at the start, it looked pretty good. I mean, the Packers won the game today in the first quarter. Then they did everything to try to lose it in the final 3 quarters, but the defense wouldn't let them. Basically, that's how it went. I think when they went touchdown to start the game, I think we're all thinking the same thing. Like, no way this offense, or any offense for that matter, is this good against a pretty solid Vikings defense. Now, while we were all kind of thinking that they're going to regress to the mean, I think we all would have thought that they would get some points after that. So it was very much a mixed bag for the Packers offense today. But look, a week ago it was no bag. I mean, they were basically blanked. I mean, 10 points in Chicago, the 1 touchdown. This was a lot better than that, but there's still miles to go offensively. Defensively, it's good defense. That's a really good defense right there.
It's a good defense that managed to keep the energy going even when the offense was going 3 and out. They were on the field for maybe a minute, and then the defense had to come right back out there and stop the Vikings offense.
Aaron Rodgers said it himself. This offense put that defense in really bad spots. And, I mean, I've been watching Packers games every week since 2014. I can't tell you how many times a game like today the Packers lose because they leaned so heavily on that defense in the final 3 quarters, especially the second half. And for the defense to do what it did, and that's not a bad Vikings offense either. I mean, it's not like, oh, they played Mitch Trubisky and Mitch Trubisky's Mitch Trubisky. I mean, Kirk Cousins might not be elite, but he's solid, and he's got a ton of weapons. Dalvin Cook is a potential top 5 running back. Diggs and Thielen, they've turned this place into their personal playground in the past. I mean, last year Diggs had 128 yards, 2 touchdowns when he was here at Lambeau Field. Thielen had 125 yards and a touchdown in both games against the Packers last year. Thielen has gone off in the Christmas Eve game in 2016. He went off for 202 yards and 2 scores. I mean, both those guys have torched this Packers secondary, and it was the opposite today. They were owned by what is really probably the linchpin of this defense. I mean, as good as that pass rush looks, this Packers defense is so good because of how they're covering on the back end. The coverage, especially Jair Alexander and Kevin King, and the improved pass rush. Now they have the Smiths on the edge with Kenny Clark in the middle. They're playing off each other at such a high rate. That's why this defense is legit. And Aaron Rodgers was asked that today. It's only 2 games. You think this defense is legit? He said yes. And the reason is because when you have your pass rush and your coverage on the back end playing and complementing each other as well as they did today, that's absolutely the sign of a good defense.
And Dalvin Cook was still pretty successful today. 20 carries, 154 yards, and we all remember the 75-yard touchdown run that Kenny Clark was not on the field for.
So I'm just going to say this. And I wrote about it during the week. When they were talking about it starts with Dalvin Cook, it starts with Dalvin Cook. Personally, and just my opinion, I disagree. I thought it starts with shutting down those 2 receivers because this Vikings offense can kill you fast with Diggs and Thielen. Those guys are so explosive. When that happens, when you give up the big plays, I thought, Dalvin Cook can get over 100 yards, and they shut down the 2 receivers. They're in a good place. That's what they did today. They didn't shut down Dalvin Cook. That was their top priority, their stated top priority during the week. Stop the run game, stop Dalvin Cook. They didn't do that, but they still had a really good defensive performance, primarily because other than a 45-yard touchdown from Diggs and a 30-yard completion on 3rd and 4 from Thielen, those two guys were taken out of the game, and that just has not happened in the past against this Packers defense. Every year, it seems, those two guys are having their way. They didn't have their way today.
All right, let's get over to some of your questions on Facebook. If you're watching there, thank you for joining us. We're always happy to see you guys. We're getting a lot of questions about injuries, so let us update you on the injuries as much as we can. There was a period of time where Zadarius Smith, missed a couple of snaps. He had what looked like an ankle injury. He was getting his ankle taped up. He spoke in the locker room after the game, and he said that it was a small deal. Nothing big, nothing to concern anybody. So that was what he had to say. I don't know what sort of long-term implications that ankle might have, but perhaps we'll find out soon enough. And then the other two injuries that are a little bit more questionable. One, Raven Green, who left the game early, also has an ankle injury, and he was out for the entire game once he left. The other one is a little bit more perplexing. Darnell Savage Jr. was seen with a boot on his foot after the game.
Yeah, that's not good.
We don't know what happened during the game that would warrant the boot. He never left the game at any point. Matt LaFleur certainly didn't mention it at the podium. As we know, Matt LaFleur doesn't like to talk about injuries when asked, so the odds of him bringing up an injury that we don't know about unsolicited are probably pretty small. So
yeah, but our Jim Ozarski saw him in a.
Yes.
By that point, I'd left the locker room to go talk with Aaron Rodgers, so I did not see him in a walking boot, but our Jim Ozarski did, and a few others, and yeah, that's a head scratcher.
That's alarming.
It's not good. I mean, walking boots are scary. I mean, they're not as scary as scooters, but they're scary, and you don't want a guy in a walking boot. And it'll be interesting to see what happens if they're without Darnell Savage Jr. for a few weeks. Who knows?
And even on top of that, Raven Green, who's presumably the next guy up, even though he has been playing in that third safety role, that hybrid sort of linebacker safety role as of late. So behind him, there's Will Redmond, and that's about it right now on the active roster.
Yeah.
So who knows what's going on at safety, but I'm sure, well, I hope we'll find out more tomorrow. Make sure you're following along, and we'll provide you with some updates. Let's see what else we got. Interesting. Okay, so Ryan.
Oh, boy.
The
way you started that one, that sounds great.
Well, because I know you don't like this question when I asked it to you a couple days ago, but now perhaps it has some new...
I'm not doing orange justice.
Some new... No,
right.
no, well, okay. Marquez Valdez-Scantling did not score a touchdown today, and he did not do the orange justice dance. He said that he was going to do the Fortnite dance, if you're familiar. I can't personally do it, so I can't show you what it looks like, but...
You'd get a lot closer than I would. No.
He said during his Twitch live stream on Thursday that if he scored a touchdown today, that was his celebratory dance. And he did not score a touchdown, thus did not do the dance. So, Ryan, you're off the hook. I told Ryan that if MVS does the dance, that Ryan has to do it too, but I don't even know if that was going to happen. But anyway, we digress.
Sorry.
So the question that Kevin raises, he says, do the Packers pursue Minka with...
No. Not giving up a first-round pick.
Still not happening. Okay, no. All right. All right, that is Minka Fitzpatrick from the Dolphins safety. Not happening. All right, so there's that. There's the answer from Ryan. There's lots of you in here that are asking this question, and people are not going to be happy with you in about a second. So let's talk about another big part of the Packers offense who was relatively quiet last week. Had a pretty big day today. Aaron Jones had a single-game career high of 23 carries. He went for 116 yards, I believe, yes. What does it show that he's able to be durable in a game and carry for 23 times?
It shows it's week 2. I mean, he's got to do it for 16 weeks. In one game, that's great. I think what we learned today is that they're not going to be overly cautious with his workload. If he needs to have 20-plus touches in a game, he's going to get 20-plus touches in a game even in September. But that doesn't answer anything long-term. I mean, what happens by December? Can he withstand that? He's never shown that before. We all know what he can do with the ball. I mean, that's not even a question. He gets enough touches. He's not just going to get 100 yards most games. He's not just going to get over 1,000 yards. He's going to have a special season if he stays healthy and gets the ball. That's the type of player he is. Just a matter of doing it week in and week out and having that kind of durability, not just in a game, but over the long haul.
So Aaron Jones making some noise today. On the other hand, unlike last week, Jimmy Graham was more or less non-existent. If anything, he hurt the Packers a couple of times.
Yeah, he blew that one pass protection. Was it the first half, the second quarter? Yeah, the blocking.
I forget who that was, but the matchup was uneven in the first place. I'm not entirely sure why that was Graham's assignment. But anyway, tight ends group as a whole was quiet. Last week they combined for 6 receptions. To me, I was like, oh, is this what the offense is going to be now? The tight ends getting really involved. This week, not so much. 0 receptions across the board from all the tight ends.
So part of that is a give and take. I mean, last week tight ends were really productive. Davante Adams had less than 40 yards. This week he went over 100, right?
Yes, he did.
Do you have the numbers in front of you?
106.
Yeah,
7
that
receptions.
Was just over 100. So this week he goes for that 100. Much more involved. Davante Adams was the man on third down today. And even it wasn't a third down, but when they were coming out of the 2-minute warning, I think it was a 2nd and 4 or something late in the game, they needed to get a first down. Aaron Rodgers went right to Davante Adams. And it wasn't just that he had 100 yards. In critical moments, Davante Adams was the guy. But Aaron Rodgers did talk about after the game needing to get the other guys involved. I mean, Marquez Valdez-Scantling had an early third down reception. Not much else after that. Geronimo Allison had the touchdown. Really good play, high pointed the ball. Then he also, had the fumble, which was critical. I mean, this offense did nothing after that fumble. They were in scoring position. It did nothing after that fumble. It's not just the fumble. I mean, there's a whole lot of other plays that happened after that, but it did turn momentum. And he didn't do much other after that touchdown. So Aaron Rodgers talked about needing to get those guys, and he named Jimmy Graham too, more involved. And they do, but this is where the value of having a guy like Davante Adams comes in, when you can just go to your guy. And the Vikings did not take him out of the game near like the Bears did in the opener.
We've got a question both from Andy and Katie. They wanted us to talk a little bit about the renewed competition at left guard between Elton Jenkins and Lane Taylor. At some point during the game, pretty early on, Elton Jenkins appeared in at left guard in place of Lane Taylor, which was kind of a surprise to us. Matt LaFleur declared that Taylor had won the starting job at the end of training camp, at the end of the preseason. And week 2, Elton Jenkins is in. What did you see from Jenkins that was maybe a bit different when the offense was in there?
Without the film. Matt LaFleur wasn't wrong. Lane Taylor started. He got 2 drives. Elton Jenkins got 2 drives. Lane Taylor got the 4 drives after that to close out the half. The last 2 were kind of in 2-minute situations. So you can tell the confidence is still there in critical moments with the veteran. But it's very clear that this team, this coaching staff, probably his front office that drafted him, want Elton Jenkins to be the starting left guard as quickly as possible. There's no question about that. After the game, Matt LaFleur said that every position is still a competition, and that's one that is definitely going to be a competition, and he likes both of those guys. Now, as far as they were different, I'd have to talk to more people, and it's tough for even coaches to break down offensive line play without watching film, but it's a musical chairs there, and it's a revolving door. They're both going to play. Pretty unusual, because usually you don't take your top 5 offensive linemen off the field unless there's an injury.
All right, let's see a couple more questions here. I did want to bring up J.K. Scott because he was such a hot topic last week after punt-a-palooza, if you will. 9 punts last week, and all of them, except for maybe 1, give or take, was pretty spot on for Scott. Today, not as impressive, I would say, but I will say the last punt, I think it was his longest punt. It was about a 59-yarder. Really helped set the defense up for success.
Do you have his numbers in front of you by chance?
I don't have all of them.
All
I
right,
just have the 59-yard
that
one.
That 59-yarder was the one that I thought that was his most critical moment, not just because it was late in the game, but he was standing in his end zone. So you want to talk about just killing the football and flipping field, that's when you got to do that. Not only was it 59 yards, I had it unofficially at a 5.10 hang time. So, he kicked it far, but he kicked it pretty high too. The Vikings did get 15 yards out of the return, but from the end zone, the Vikings started on their 40. You'll take that. You'll absolutely take that when you're punting from that spot of the field. So when they needed J.K. Scott to step up huge today, he absolutely did. That was a huge punt that he had at the end.
Mm-hmm. So the Packers 2-0, They lead the NFC North.
Yeah.
They face the Broncos next week, who just lost to the Chicago Bears in pretty dramatic
What a crazy
fashion.
game that was. I'm sure that if you're watching, you probably saw that game was nuts. The Packers, unless something just completely insane happens, the Packers are going to beat the Broncos. They're going to start 3-0. 2 of those wins. I mean, you can't script this any better for Matt LaFleur. They're 2-0 against their top 2 NFC North rivals, 2 teams that are really, they think of themselves, and rightly so, as playoff caliber teams, have a lot of expectations this year. They beat both of them, and the offense has literally had only 1 good quarter of football. The other 7 quarters, it's not been good. This has been defensive football. You would expect, naturally, I still expect that the offense is going to get better throughout the season. I don't think it's going to be this shaky, as shaky as it is in September, the entire year. That's just natural growing pains. Whenever you're implementing a new system, you're going to have that, especially on the offensive side, with all the moving factors involved and the quarterback, how important the quarterback is. So for them to have as shaky of play as they've had at times and be 2-0 right now, it's phenomenal. I mean, you literally could not script it any better, this start to this Matt LaFleur tenure.
A win's a win. And
Yeah.
no matter how shaky they are, a win's a win. 2-0.
2-0 is huge. I didn't have him at 2-0. Did you have him at 2-0?
Certainly not. No.
I don't think a lot of people had him 2-0. You're watching at home. You're the biggest Packers fan. If you're honest, like 2-0, you at the very best, you were uncertain about that. I mean, at the very most rose-colored glasses, you say this team's going to go 2-0 to start the season. The very best, you're uncertain about that. You're hoping, but they just did that, and it's darn impressive. It really is.
We'll take one more question here, you guys. A lot of you are asking about what seemed to be a miscommunication or a mistake that Rodgers made by going for it on 4th and 1. So he clarified later on that he thought it was a first down. And so it was his bad, he said, that it was his mistake. I forget exactly what the wording was. Boneheaded, something, yes. So that was, if any of you were at home confused as to why they went for it, it's because Rodgers was trying to get to the line of scrimmage as fast as possible, assuming if he thought that it was first down.
Hey, Aaron Rodgers and I have something in common, Olivia. I know, it sounds crazy. We're both going to go home from this and have a glass of scotch.
Ooh.
He said that he'll have an extra finger in his, pour himself an extra finger for his scotch tonight after that play. Basically, he didn't realize until after the snap that it was 4th down. He thought that he got a favorable spot from the line judge. He did not. He got a spot-on spot. It was 4th down. But he wanted to hustle and not – it was inside 2 minutes, so it's a booth review. Wanted to hustle before they got a chance to look at it. Matt LaFleur actually took, kind of ownership of that, so that he should have communicated in the helmet to Aaron Rodgers, don't snap the ball, it's 4th down. As fast as – I mean, y'all seen Aaron Rodgers get the offense to the line of scrimmage, get that ball snapped. Anytime there's 12 men on the field, as fast as he does that, I don't know how possible that was to communicate that in that time, but they both took ownership of it. It's the type of play that could have cost them. I mean, those 3, when it's 21-16 in that 4th quarter, those 3 points were looming really big. But Aaron Rodgers said he'll have an extra finger of scotch tonight, and I'll do the same. I'll do the same.
Pardon my ignorance. I didn't know scotch was measured by fingers. Yeah.
Oh,
I don't drink scotch.
Clearly. Okay. Well.
Does that come as a surprise?
No.
It
doesn't.
Yeah, no.
Yes.
Nah, well, I don't, so anyway.
I'll have 2 fingers.
All right, guys. So, very big win for the Packers today, and big thank you to all of you guys. Great transition. I'm sure we'll have lots of updates for you guys tomorrow, especially pending any injury news. So make sure you're following along. The Packers speak tomorrow around 2:15, 2:30. Both the team members will be available and Matt LaFleur. So perhaps we'll have some news for you tomorrow. Guys, thank you so much.
Pivot from scotch to the end. That was impressive.
Pivot. I don't know. What did I do? How did I do it?
That was good. You got us out of that. I was trying to pull us down, and you're like, no, I'm going to lift us up.
No, honestly, I'm like, I think the best ways to end are just like, like that. Don't drag it out. I have a tendency to drag it out. Okay. Goodness gracious. It got dark over there.
It did. And I wanted to go home.
It is such a clusterfuck in the locker room after these games. My God.
This
whole season.